So I haven't done many videos covering The View. I think I've only done one. This one I thought was funny, and I do have a lot of thoughts on. But Elizabeth Warren goes on The View. Okay, she goes on The View, and she explains her wealth tax, and she basically goes on to list all of the things that could be funded with the wealth tax without raising middle-class taxes. Let's hear this out.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the tax plan. I think it's time for a wealth tax in America. This is a tax on the top 0.1%, $50 million and above your fortune. In other words, your first $50 million is free and clear. But on your 50 millionth and first dollar, you got to pitch in 2 cents and 2 cents on every dollar after that.
But what about the middle class?
That's not the middle class.
No,
That's
I know,
the
but what
top
about
1/10 of 1%. I don't have plans to increase taxes on the middle class.
Okay.
I figured out how to do every plan I've done out there without increasing taxes on the middle class. But look at what a 2-cent wealth tax would do for us. Universal child care for every baby in this country aged 0 to 5. $800 billion into our public schools. Make it a real commitment.
Can we just switch
Universal
gears?
college, $50 billion for historically black colleges and
but I think
universities,
what
and
Victoria's
cancel
trying to
student
say-
loan debt for 43
I just got to you
switch
at break.
this, but we
When
gotta
Trump
switch
just said
really
that we
quick.
spent $2
I have
trillion
a question.
on the military, I said I don't want anyone ever to ask Elizabeth Warren how she's going to pay for medical care.
There you go.
$2 trillion
So look,
on the military. I don't want to hear it anymore.
I have a lot of things to say about this, okay? I have many of things to say about this, all right? So one thing that's obviously absolutely hilarious is that Elizabeth Warren just completely ignores Meghan McCain and pretends like she doesn't exist. That's hilarious, okay? I absolutely love that portion. Meghan McCain is trying to jump in. That's like the ultimate shade, is where you don't even recognize the person. Like you're such a moron. I'm not even going to acknowledge what you're trying to say. I thought that was hilarious. Now, and I love the wealth tax idea. The wealth tax idea is awesome. I'm totally for wealth tax. I think it's a great plan. And I'm also for all of the programs that she is proposing. Universal child care is really dope. Funding public education is dope, obviously. All of these programs are really good things that can be funded by a wealth tax. Now, there are a couple of problems that I have. One of the problems being, notice she doesn't mention healthcare there. Why does she not mention Medicare for all? That's my big question, right? Because that's actually the number one thing. Medicare for all is life and death, okay? So that's more important than anything else, because it's literally life or death. Notice how she doesn't talk about healthcare there. She talks about literally everything except for healthcare. And so for me, I'm really worried, and it concerns me as a voter, because it's telling me that healthcare is not your number one priority, let alone one of your priorities, when I think it should be your number one issue. And I don't like how she's been reticent to basically say that middle-class taxes are going to go up to fund Medicare for all, because in effect it's a tax cut, because you're no longer paying any premiums, you're not paying any co-pays, and you don't have any deductibles, and you'll be paying a small tax out of your income to fund it. So that has really taken me off. She even went on Stephen Colbert, and Stephen Colbert was alley-ooping it to her, trying to explain to her how she can dunk it, and she refused to do it, which I thought was ridiculous. Also, it's pretty frustrating to see all of neoliberal Twitter, the Hillary fans on Twitter, basically cheering on Elizabeth Warren here, when Bernie Sanders talks about all this stuff, they're not for that kind of stuff. They're not for, free college education and all these other kinds of things, right? So I find that to be disgusting and extremely hypocritical and very suspect. And then the other problem I have is at the end when she talks about, I think her name is Sunny, talks about, the wars and how Donald Trump bragged. He boasted about spending $2 trillion on the military. And she says, ask Elizabeth Warren of how she's going to pay for healthcare. One, Elizabeth Warren never talks about healthcare at all. Bernie Sanders is the one who talks about healthcare, and you don't bring up Bernie Sanders, and obviously you give Elizabeth Warren the credit. For what reason? Is it because she's a woman? Maybe. I'm not really sure, to be quite frank with you. But ultimately, there's some portions of this that I don't like. I don't like that she's not prioritizing and focusing, or even, she didn't even mention healthcare, dude. There's not even a mention of healthcare in there. Okay, that I don't like. Don't like how they're attributing Medicare for all to Elizabeth Warren somehow now, which I find hilarious. neoliberals are also extremely hypocritical when it comes to this, because while they will happily support Elizabeth Warren, they won't support Bernie Sanders, who has the same policy, but Elizabeth Warren is a woman, Bernie Sanders is a man. Seems like there's something going on there. And then Meghan McCain, I loved how she just completely pretended like Meghan McCain didn't exist. I thought that was absolutely hilarious.